Unit 3, the circulatory system. Multicellular organisms are organized into tissues and organs that require nutrients and oxygen in order to function. A transport system is necessary to perform the following: transport gases, nutrient molecules, and waste, regulate internal temperature and transport chemical substances around the body, and protect against blood loss from injury and against disease and toxic substances. The circulatory system has three main components: the heart, which is a muscular organ that pumps blood through the body; blood vessels, which is a system of hollow tubes through which blood moves; and blood, the fluid that transports nutrients, oxygen, carbon dioxide, and many other materials. There are two types of circulation. The first I'm going to talk about is the open circulatory system. In this one, blood flows freely within the body cavity and makes direct contact with organs and tissues. The example I give to you here is that of a grasshopper. The heart pumps hemolymph through the single tubular vessel into the body cavity. The fluid re-enters the vessel through small pores called ostia. The arrows show the movement of the hemolymph. You can see here. The second type is a closed circulatory system. Blood is kept physically contained within vessels. The blood follows a continuous fixed path of circulation and is confined to a network of vessels that keep the blood separate. The example I give to you here, at least the picture, is of an earthworm, but it also includes humans, right? And of course I have birds there, but animals and humans. The earthworm has a simple closed circulatory system. It has five aortic arches near the head that act as hearts to pump blood around the earthworm's body. Found slightly to the left of the middle of your chest is the heart, and is made of cardiac muscle. The muscle cells contract and relax rhythmically and involuntarily without becoming fatigued. Oxygen-rich blood is kept separate from oxygen-poor blood. The heart has four chambers. The top two are atria, and the bottom two are ventricles. So here we have our right atria and our left atria, and the bottom two, so our right ventricle and our left ventricle. The right side receives blood from the body's veins via the vena cava and pumps it to the lungs, where it picks up oxygen through the pulmonary arteries. The oxygenated blood returns from the lungs via the pulmonary veins, enters the left atrium, and travels to the left ventricle. The heart pumps it through the aorta to follow to the rest of the body. The valves control the flow of the blood through the heart. The atrioventricular valve, or tricuspid, here on the right side, and the mitral or bicuspid valve on the left, let blood from the atria into the ventricles. The semilunar valves, that's the pulmonary on the right, okay, and the aortic on the left. Let blood flow through the ventricles into the large arteries. This is a cross section of the human heart and shows four main valves that help maintain blood pressure and keep blood flowing in one direction. You can see here the pulmonary semilunar valve, the aortic semilunar valve, the tricuspid and the tricuspid and the bicuspid. A here are smaller arterioles and carry blood away from the heart and are elastic. B are veins and smaller venules and carry blood to the heart and have one-way valves that keep blood moving forward. The capillaries are the site of the exchange of materials between the blood and cells. They are single layered, so small that red blood cells must pass through one at a time. This double circulatory system pumps blood through one circuit between the heart and the lungs. The pulmonary circulation, and then through a second unit between the heart and the rest of the body, the systemic circulation. The movement of blood through the heart is called cardiac circulation. Blood has two elements. The fluid portion, called plasma. It consists of water and dissolved gases. Proteins, sugar, vitamins, minerals, and waste products. The solid portion. Called the formed portion. It consists of red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets that are formed in bone marrow. The three main components of blood can be separated using a device called a blood centrifuge. When the blood is separated, it briefly settles into layers, as shown here. Plasma is 92% water, 7% dissolved blood proteins, albumin, globulins, and fibrinogen, and 1% other substances, glucose, fatty acids, vitamins, salts, and gases. And you can see here we have the components as well as the major functions within those components in the blood. So for water, dissolves and transports other substances. For the blood proteins, maintains the fluid balance in plasma, in cells, and in spaces between cells. Help maintain slightly alkaline pH. Fibrinogen helps the blood with clotting, and globulins are antibodies that strengthen our immunity. Salt ions, these are things such as bicarbonate, calcium, chloride, magnesium, potassium, and sodium are electrolytes, maintain fluid balance in plasma, in cells, and in spaces between the cells. So that's similar to water. Help maintain slightly alkaline pH, so that's similar to plasma proteins. And assist in nerve and muscle function. Red blood cells, or erythrocytes, make up 44% of the total blood volume and are specialized for oxygen transport due to hemoglobin they contain, approximately 280 million per cell. Hemoglobin can carry carbon dioxide in small amounts to aid in waste removal. Mature erythrocytes do not have a nucleus. There are between 500 and 1,000 red blood cells for every white blood cell. Mammalian red blood cells are shaped like biconcave discs, look like little donuts, providing more surface area for gas exchange. A healthy body produces up to 2 million new red blood cells every second. White blood cells and their functions. White blood cells, or leukocytes, make up 1% of the total blood volume of blood. 5 main types form a complex system for fighting infections and cancer. Each is a specialist in defending the body. Neutrophils, okay, those are the most abundant. Eosinophils, that's in the mucus. Basophils, those attract phagocytosis. Lymphocytes, which produce antibodies, and monocytes, which circulate and destroy bacteria. And you can see them in each one of the pictures below. Leukocytes move through interstitial fluid suspended in the blood plasma. Neutrophils, eosinophils, and basophils are known as granulocytes due to their grainy appearance. Lymphocytes and monocytes are known as agranular because of their smooth appearance. You'll see here in a second another picture. Not quite yet, another slide. Platelets and their function. Okay, so platelets or thrombocytes are membrane-bound fragments of cells, no nuclei. They have no nuclei, and that they play a key role in the complex process of blood clotting. At the site of injury, they rupture, releasing chemicals, and form thromboplastin. If calcium is present, more reactions occur to produce fibrin as insoluble proteins that form a mesh or a clot over the injury. Strands of fibrin form a mesh over a damaged blood vessel, trapping red blood cells and producing a clot. You can see here in this table what we've all been talking about. Okay, we can see the red blood cells, okay, and where they're produced, right, in the bone marrow. How many are produced per millimeter cubed of blood, their relative size, their function, their lifespan, and their appearance. And so this is where I was saying you can see maybe a little bit more of a representation of the granulocytes and the agranulocytes and what they might look like. And you can see the smooth appearance of them here, the rough appearance here, the biconcave discs that kind of look like a donut with no hole, and then the platelets over here. How long each one of them live, their function, their relative size. The functions of blood continued here. So transport blood in capillaries and cell walls of the small intestine absorb most of the end products of digestion. Blood absorbs glucose and amino acids made in other parts of the body and send them to the liver. Blood transports chemicals and gases from and for the respiratory system. Blood transports and removes waste products of cellular processes such as mineral ions. Temperature regulation for cellular components of blood. The circulatory system regulates temperature by changing the volume of blood following near the skin. Blood vessels can either expand, right, that's vasodilation, to release heat, or contract. This is called vasoconstriction, to conserve heat. Factors that result in vasodilation are high blood pressure, increased activity, alcohol, and nicotine. And factors that result in vasoconstriction are low blood pressure and decreased activity. You can see here in this picture a depiction of temperature regulation. In A, at the top, during vasodilation, the blood vessels expand, increasing blood flow near the skin. So here's the skin, right? We're increasing blood flow near the skin. In B, we have, this is during vasoconstriction, the blood vessels contract. You can see that they look smaller, right? They're squeezing, reducing blood flow near the skin. Concurrent heat exchange. This system helps maintain a steady temperature in the core of the body. Deep arteries and veins, entering and leaving the body's extremities, lie adjacent to one another. So warmer blood that flows from the body core to the extremities exchanges heat with the cooler blood returning from the extremities to the body core. So you can see here 37 degrees, and see as it gets farther away, the temperature goes down. Right, this is with the arteries. Of course, then we have it returning in the deep veins, and you can see it's maintaining a higher temperature in the deep veins because it's farther in the body. But then on the surface veins, it does go down in temperature as it returns back to the heart. Within the heart, monitoring the heart circulation system. So within the heart, the sinoatrial node, or SA for short, referred to as the pacemaker. Right? This is not necessarily referring to the pacemaker that a person can get to help help their heartbeat, although it does serve that function. It is what it does. It stimulates the muscle cells to contract and relax rhythmically. The SA node is on the right atrium. It generates an electrical signal that spreads over the atria so they contract simultaneously. The signal then reaches the atrioventricular node, which transmits the signal through a bundle of fibers known as the bundle of His. They relay the signal to Purkinje fibers. These fibers initiate the almost simultaneous contraction of the ventricles. So the SA node sends out an electrical stimulus that causes the atria to contract. This is what gives us our heartbeat. And so you can see here in the right atrium where the SA node starts the impulse, where it reaches the AV node, right? That which sends it the signal down the bundle of His into the Purkinje fibers, okay, and contracts the ventricles. The normal sound of the heartbeat, heard with a stethoscope, right? That's what the doctor uses to listen to your chest, is described as lub-dub. These sounds are made as valves close. Lub is the closing of the atrioventricular valves. Dub is the closing of the semilunar valves. So sound variations can indicate heart problems, such as a stenosis murmur or a narrowing of the heart valves or arteries. An ECG or electrocardiogram. Most heart functions are analyzed by measuring an electrical pulse generated by the nerve signals that stimulate contractions. These create millivolt charges that can be detected with electrodes on the surface. So you can see here in the picture, the SA node, atrial excitation begins and the atria contracts. So we have the SA node, right? It is sending that impulse. That is what we call P. You can see here on an ECG that we have P, Q, R, S, T. And it shows you on R is lub and on T is dub. Okay. So we move from the SA node and the impulse there. The impulse delay is delayed at the AV node, right, which is right here. And ventricles fill. So the ventricles are filling with blood at this point. The ventricle excitation in the heart apex, right? The apex is this part of the heart. And bicuspid and tricuspid valves close. So they fill, and then these valves here close. Ventricular excitation is complete. Okay. Remember when it's going from the SA node to the AV node, down the bundle of His, okay, and then to these Purkinje fibers. Okay, when ventricular relaxation occurs, the semilunar valves close. Okay, and blood is moved out. An ECG allows doctors to determine if the heart is generating signals of normal strength, frequency, and duration. So this is my Versa 3 that I wear, and you can see here that it gives me a number of pieces of data, but specifically it'll give me that QRST right there for the ECG. All right, regarding blood pressure. Blood pressure is the pressure that the blood exerts on the blood vessel walls as it travels through the body. Changes in blood pressure correspond to the phases of the heartbeat. Okay, so first one I'm going to talk about is systolic pressure, and this is the maximum pressure in the arteries when the ventricles contract and push blood through. Okay, diastolic pressure is the lowest pressure in the arteries when the ventricles are not contracting. They're relaxing at this point. You can see here in diagram A, small muscles around the veins contract and relax to squeeze blood along the veins. Okay. In B, the one-way valves inside the veins prevent blood from flowing backward due to the pull of gravity. So you can see that here, right? The blood moves up, these valves close. Okay, you can see the valves are open here, right? Blood's getting pushed up. The valves close, and then they pump up again to keep that blood moving back towards the heart. So measuring blood pressure, we have something called a sphygmomanometer. Okay, so that is pronounced sphygmomanometer. And this is a blood pressure cuff. This is placed on the artery in the arm and measures blood pressure. Pressure is recorded in millimeters of mercury as systolic and diastolic, systolic over diastolic. The average blood pressure for a healthy young person is below 120/80. or 120 millimeters of mercury over 80 millimeters of mercury. You can see the two different types of sphygmomanometers here. This is the kind that you would see in your doctor's office, and this is the kind that you'd likely see at home. This is a home unit. It's a one-touch button kind of thing, easy for anyone to use. Blood pressure is affected by a number of things: genetics, activity, stress, body temperature, diet, and medications. Continuous high blood pressure, or what's called hypertension, can cause damage to arteries and increase the risk of heart attack, stroke, and kidney failure. Using a stethoscope, a doctor or a nurse can hear the flow of blood as the pressure in the sphygmomanometer is released and the blood starts to flow. Cardiac output. So the volume of blood pumped by the heart is expressed as milliliters per minute. It can indicate the total level of work the body's muscles can perform, how easily the heart fills with blood, and the distentability or stretchiness of the ventricles. Heart rate and stroke volume. The amount of blood pumped out of the heart with each heartbeat are used to calculate cardiac output, which is heart rate times stroke volume. Average heart rate is about 70 beats per minute. Stroke volume, 70 milliliters. Average cardiac output is 70 times 70, or 49 milliliters per minute. You see here in this visual representation, the cardiac output entails both heart rate and in beats per minute and stroke volume in milliliters per minute. Cardiovascular fitness is the capacity of the lungs, heart, and blood vessels to deliver oxygen to working muscles. In the table below, individual C is considered to be the most fit. Why? What factors determine this? Okay, you see down here. Another good indicator of cardiovascular fitness is the length of time it takes the heart to return to its resting heart rate after strenuous exercise. So, what might we say? Okay, why is this person the healthiest? They all have the same cardiac output. Okay, well, if we take a look at their resting heart rate, it is the lowest resting heart rate, which means it's not having to work very hard, but it's getting the most amount of volume per, we'll say, milliliters per beat. And so it's the most efficient heart, right? Although it has the same cardiac output, it does not have the same resting heart rate or stroke volume as the other two. Smoking, obesity, and insufficient exercise are among the risk factors that contribute to cardiovascular disease. In many cases, individuals can reduce or eliminate the effects of these risks on their lives by making changes to their lifestyles. So moving more, not smoking, eating healthy foods, and making sure to visit your doctor and to tell them about the issues that you're having. Okay, so now on to circulatory system disorders. Arterial sclerosis. In a general term, that describes several conditions in which the walls of the arteries thicken and lose their elasticity. One type, called atherosclerosis, occurs when when plaque, okay, that's fat, calcium, and fibrous tissues build up in the arteries. Okay, as you can see there. As the arteries narrow, blood pressure increases, and this may lead to angina or chest pain, and blood clots or shortness of breath, heart attacks, or heart failure. Treatments include aspirin, angioplasty, and a coronary bypass. An aneurysm. That's a bulge in the artery due to a weakened area of the arterial wall. Blood pressure can cause the aneurysm to grow larger over time. If it bursts, internal bleeding can be fatal. Most aneurysms occur in the aorta. Treatments include surgery to remove the damage, portions, and replacement with a patch or a graft made of synthetic material. More on aneurysms. A colored MRI scan shows an aneurysm here. Okay, aneurysm or bulge in one of the arteries of the neck. The scan was done to determine the cause of the patient's dizziness. So, heart valve diseases. The following diseases affect the proper functioning of the heart valves. Regurgitation, and this is when a valve does not close completely and blood flows backwards instead of forwards. So here we have a healthy aortic valve when it's closed and a healthy aortic valve when it's open. This is a diseased aortic valve when it's closed. You can see it doesn't fully close properly. And when it's open, it doesn't open very well. There's stenosis, and this is when the valve opening becomes narrow from thickening or scarring inhibiting blood flow. Cause include aging, previous heart attack, or infection. Surgeons can repair this valve or replace it with a human, animal, metal, plastic, or synthetic alternative. Pretty incredible what we can do. An arrhythmia. This is a problem with the speed or rhythm of the heartbeat and can lead to insufficient blood flow to the brain or organs. This may be treated with medications or surgery to implant an artificial pacemaker. So you can see here, this is the QRST of a normal heart, and then we have the QRST of an irregular heartbeat. In a pacemaker, two lead wires with electrodes at their tips send the electrical signal from the pulse generator to the heart muscle. The electrical signals cause the heart muscle to contract or pump. Most pacemaker implants are performed under local anesthesia. As you can see here, here's the pacemaker device. There's congenital heart defects. So this is present at birth, including problems in the walls dividing the heart chambers, in valves, and in structures of the heart blood vessels. Surgeons can often successfully repair or reduce damage. Also, stroke. An ischemic stroke occurs when a clot in a blood vessel blocks the flow of blood to the brain. A hemorrhagic stroke occurs when a blood vessel in the brain bursts and blood vessels flow into the surrounding tissue. Both kill brain cells and can lead to permanent damage. Treatment must begin immediately to be effective. Include clot bursters surgery and non-surgical procedures. Anemia. This is blood when blood contains fewer than normal healthy red blood cells and can be caused by blood loss, or when the blood cells do not contain enough hemoglobin to carry the body's required amount of oxygen. Symptoms include dizziness, fatigue, shortness of breath, headache, and cold extremities. Treatments include dietary supplements